Alright people, so welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series on current affairs. Now today we are going to cover all the important news items from the past 1 week related to the field of economics. So today is economics related current affairs from the past 1 week. Now needless to say this, but I'm still going to say it. Make this lecture series a part of your daily routine, because if you do that, well, you won't have to spend that much time of your day, just 45 minutes, 30 minutes of lecture and 15 minutes of revision from notes. But these 45 minutes spent consistently from today till your examination would yield massive dividends for your exams. Okay, your score will definitely improve. So make sure you make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. All right then, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away dive into the lecture. So let's begin. So current affairs, economics, July part 2, and here are the topics that we are going to take a look at. So topics to be covered. Number one topic is World Economic Outlook Update. There is this report published by IMF twice every year. Now, in that report, well, they have downgraded India's GDP growth projections. The name of the report is World Economic Outlook. So we'll take a look at this report. Then, in July this year, it has been 9 years since the enactment of GST tax regime. So we'll talk about the achievements of GST taxation regime and what changes were made recently, which was famously termed as GST 2.0. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about interstate economic divergence. This is as per the report given by World Bank, that there are various Indias. Some states in India are high income countries and some states in India are low income countries. If the states in India were countries, well, they would have been classified in these categories. So there is pretty much very high divergence as far as economics is concerned, or the economy of those states are concerned. So we'll take a look at this part as well. Okay, so these are the three news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one. Starting with topic number one, and that is World Economic Outlook Update. So twice every year, IMF releases World Economic Outlook. And as the name suggests, well, they give an outlook of the entire world's economy. They do focus on specific countries as well. Now, as per the latest update, well, India's GDP growth projections for this fiscal year has been downgraded a little. Understandably so, because of various global threats, economic threats like the Strait of Hormuz, energy crisis. Because of various threats, it is difficult for India to grow at very high pace in the current external environment. That is why they have downgraded India's growth projections just a little bit. But they have also said that the entire world is suffering. And if we compare India's performance to the rest of the world, well, India is still the highest growing economy. Okay, fastest growing economy in the world. So we'll talk about what threats, economic threats India is facing, because of which, well, their GDP growth projections were downgraded. Okay, and we'll also talk about certain bright spots in India's economy that make it the fastest growing economy in the world. Okay, so we'll talk about all these things. So let's begin. So World Economic Outlook Update. So what was in the news? The first half of July 2026, IMF and Asian Development Bank released their mid-year macroeconomic growth forecasts for India, reflecting a cautious realignment due to global economic pressures. There are severe global economic pressures, and because of which India's growth projections were downgraded. So what changes were made? IMF said, earlier IMF projected that India will grow. In April, it said that India will grow by 6.5% this year. Now, in July, they have downgraded it by 0.1%. They are saying that India will grow by 6.4%. So a mild change. Then Asian Development Bank also did that. As per Asian Development Bank, well, India was to grow by 6.9% this year, but now it has been downgraded to 6.6, a drop of 0.3 percentage points. Okay, but both these organizations have still maintained the fact that despite these minor downward revisions, both institutions confirmed that India remains the fastest growing major economy globally. The global growth is projected, basically the global growth, okay, world economic growth is projected to be 3%. So India is way above that mark. Okay, so this is basically some good news. But these are definitely bad news items. Now, why have they downgraded India's growth projections? So what are the reasons behind this? Basically, they have blamed it all on external factors. Okay, there were two factors in particular. Number one, choke point vulnerability. A lot of India's supplies, okay, just a second. A lot of India's supplies come from, well, and if we are talking about energy supplies, they come from Strait of Hormuz. Okay. And a lot of supplies that come from Europe, India and Europe's trade, well, the ships pass from Bab el Mandab Strait or Red Sea route. Well, both these areas of the world have witnessed some tensions, okay, military tensions, and because of that, both these routes have been blocked at some point in time. And this is a significant vulnerability for India, because once these straits or these routes are blocked, well, India suffers heavily. Okay, so the choke point vulnerability. The other is the crude oil squeeze, because most of India's crude oil and natural gas comes from Strait of Hormuz, and because of US-Iran war, this was blockaded. Now, higher energy costs, because crude oil is not supplied in that quantity which India desires. Okay, so there is reduction in crude oil supply. Whenever there is shortage of supply, prices go up. So energy costs drain corporate profit margins. It raises input costs of various raw materials and dampen domestic private consumption, because everything becomes expensive. So people basically postpone their buying activities, which reduces demand. Okay, so this is the line that you should remember. Okay, so this is the missing link. Maritime conflict, which led to Suez Canal redirections. We had to take a longer sea route. Global freight and insurance spikes, so transportation costs increased, which led to imported inflation. And whenever there is high inflation, everyone suffers, consumers as well as producers in India. And that is why, because of these crises, well, IMF and ADB downgraded India's growth projections. Okay, but they have also pointed out this good news, that India is still pretty much structurally resilient as compared to other economies. Now, what things are there in India's economy that are working for it? Okay, so structural strengths. First of all, unlike European economies like Germany, Netherlands, which are export dependent, most of their wealth comes from exports. India's economy is well dependent on domestic consumption. Therefore, whenever there is a crisis in the world economy, or whenever there is any blockade as far as sea routes are concerned, Europe suffers because it is export dependent. But India somehow saves itself, because India's economy, 60 to 70% of India's GDP comes from domestic private consumption. So this is there. Then second, a lot of India's GDP growth is now coming from government-led capital expenditure. Government is spending a lot on infrastructure, which boosts India's growth. So they have pointed this out. IMF has pointed this out, that government has become proactive in spending money in infrastructure projects. So this is good news. Plus, yes, as far as goods are concerned, well, India imports more than it exports. But when it comes to services, India exports more than it imports. So whatever losses that are coming India's way because of, well, global crises, well, they are compensated for by services exports. And services exports are not dependent on any trade routes also. So whatever is happening in Strait of Hormuz, Bab el Mandab Strait, or any place in the world, well, services are not exported through ships. And because of that, well, India's services exports remained intact, and this marks another strength of India's economy. Clear? Now, this is the table I have mentioned, or basically the points mentioned by IMF and ADB, Asian Development Bank. Well, they can be written in a table form. I have shared this table in your notes, so do check it out, though we have discussed each and every point before also. Now, what are the challenges that still face India's economy? Okay, so first of all, managing the twin deficit risk. Indian economy is suffering from huge fiscal deficit and huge current account deficit. Now, fiscal deficit is related to government spending. Government spends way more than its receipts. Okay, current account deficit is when your imports are way more than your exports. Now, when both of them are occurring together, we call it twin deficit. And India is currently suffering from this. So we have to manage this somehow. So this is a challenge that is looming over our heads like the sword of Damocles. So we have to manage this. Then addressing the K-shaped urban versus rural recovery. Now you should know what is K-shaped recovery. So whenever your economy is recovering, some sectors recover fast, whereas some sectors do not recover at all or are decelerating. This leads to a K-shaped economic recovery. As you can see, this is a K-shaped economic recovery. India is currently facing that. Urban areas are economically recovering pretty spectacularly, but rural areas are still going through distress. So India is witnessing K-shaped recovery, especially when we compare urban versus rural areas. So we need to solve this challenge. Okay. What is the way forward? Well, we need to decouple ourselves from our over dependence on fossil fuels, look for other fuel sources like green hydrogen, renewable sources, all these things. Okay. So decouple yourself from fossil fuels, dependence on fossil fuels. Then broaden global supply chain integration. That means whatever product is being manufactured anywhere in the world, some part of that product should be manufactured in India. That way, India will be integrated into the global supply chain. People's dependence, other countries' dependence on India would rise. And they cannot ignore India, and they definitely cannot bully India like Donald Trump was doing. So this is there. Plus deepening subnational fiscal discipline. You remember we are suffering from twin deficit. Our fiscal deficit is high. Well, central government is taking pretty good care of its fiscal deficit, but state governments are not doing so. So this subnational fiscal discipline needs to be inculcated in different states also. This needs to be done so that we can manage our overall fiscal deficit. Make sense? That's about it. That's all you need to know as far as this topic is concerned. And now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is 9 years of GST. 1st July 2017 was the day when GST was enforced in India. For GST to come to India, we had to amend our constitution, and that was done by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act 2016. And 1st July 2017 was the first day when GST taxation regime started in India. Now, on 1st July 2026, GST has completed 9 years. So it is an opportune time to reflect on what were the benefits of GST, what achievements were there as soon as GST was rolled out in India, what did India gain out of it? And what are some of the challenges that we still face as far as Indian taxation is concerned? 9 years is a good time to reflect upon GST. So that is what we are doing in this particular topic. There were 2-3 articles that were published in Indian Express and the Hindu newspaper related to this topic. So we have to cover it. So let's begin. 9 years of GST. So what's the context? On 1st July, GST completed 9 years. It was first rolled out in 2017 through 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. The macroeconomic landscape is currently shaped by operationalization of GST 2.0. So GST was working, and recently, last year, we enacted GST 2.0. We basically conducted major reforms in the GST regime. We reduced the number of slabs, and we rationalized the tax rates of certain items. Okay, as per the decisions taken in 56th GST Council meeting. Now, what have been the benefits of GST ever since it was rolled out in 2017? Okay, so there are 2 particular benefits. Number 1, broadening of India's tax base. Tax base means the number of people who pay taxes. Okay, registered GST taxpayers have surged from 66.5 lakhs to nearly 1.65 crore. That means the number of people paying taxes, indirect taxes, increased. Okay, number of businesses that were paying taxes. Now, as soon as you become a GST taxpayer, even if you are running an informal business, it gets formalized. Okay, so expansion of GST tax base is also good news from the perspective of formalization of Indian economy. Otherwise, before this period, well, most of Indian enterprises were working in the informal sector. So this is a good indicator of formalization of Indian economy. So this is good, broadening of India's tax base. And the other part is expansion of, well, this is there. The other part is expansion of revenue. Okay, government revenue. In financial year 2017-18, we earned 7.4 lakh crore just from GST. Then 2021-22, 13.7 lakh crore. And this year was a record year. 2025-26, we earned 22.27 lakh crore. That means GST is a good taxation system that is earning a lot of money to the government. And when the government becomes fiscally strong, well, it runs less fiscal deficit and has more money to spend on developmental priorities. So this is good news. That means GST is working, tax base is widening, and revenue is growing, right? Now, to further improve GST, we launched major reforms. Okay, Such was the extent of these reforms that the today's GST regime is known as GST 2.0. So what was the architecture of GST 2.0? Okay, number one, well, some slabs were totally removed. The exempt and 5% slabs. Earlier, there were 5 slabs: 0%, 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. Unbranded staples moved to 0%, daily essentials cut from 18 to 5%. Okay, so we have removed many slabs and we have rationalized some rates, tax rates on certain items, because there were certain items that were essential, but they were taxed in a higher slab. Okay, so this was basically hurting the budget of people. So that was rationalized. Then standard 18% slab serves as the primary standard rate for vast majority of goods and services have been put in 18% slab. Plus all these sin goods, demerit goods, goods that harm human beings. Okay, there are certain goods like cigarettes, alcohol, they harm human beings, right? So that is why they are called sin goods, sin. Okay, and they have been taxed heavily. 40% consolidates taxes on luxury and sin goods. Okay, so luxury, why luxury goods? Because luxury goods are mostly consumed by rich people, and rich people should pay their fair share of taxes. So we are taxing those items which are mostly consumed by rich people at a higher rate. Those items which are consumed by poor people, essential items, are taxed at a lower rate. Okay, so this was in broad terms the architecture of GST 2.0, though we have discussed GST 2.0 in our previous current affairs lectures in detail. So we won't dive any more deep into this GST 2.0. Basically, these were the 3 pillars. Now, plus there were certain other changes. You have added more tech into GST. Okay, the primary structural achievement of GST framework is its complete transition to an automated, non-physical administrative model. And that's because of GST network. AI-driven risk auditing is happening now with the advance of AI. System monitors live supply chains, flags suspicious input tax credit. If anyone is defrauding the system, it is flagged immediately by AI. Okay. Plus, there is an invoice management system introduced to streamline the matching of credit notes between seller and suppliers. Basically, long story cut short, you are using tech to make GST more efficient. Okay, you don't have to physically file taxes, you just use tech, and the process has been automated. It is easier on taxpayer as well as the government, tax collector. Clear? All right. Now, there are still some challenges. 3 challenges are there in particular. Number 1, inverted duty structure. Now, what do you mean by inverted duty structure? Pay close attention. This is really important. Inverted duty structure is still there despite GST 2.0. Now, suppose I manufacture this pen. Okay. Now, the raw material used in this pen, there are many raw materials, but the most important raw material is, let's suppose, plastic. Okay. Now, I manufacture this pen. Clear? Now, the problem is that plastic is not produced in India. So, to manufacture this pen, I have to import plastic. Now, when I import plastic, I pay an import duty, a tax, a GST of sorts of 18% for plastic. But if I import pen directly from the overseas, okay, directly from foreign markets, if I don't manufacture this pen in India, if I just import this pen directly, I have to pay lesser import duty. So if I'm importing raw material, I pay higher tax, and if I'm importing the entire product, I'm paying lower tax. This is inverted duty structure. It should be the other way around. You know why? Because this incentivizes import of pen. What do we want? We want more and more people to manufacture this pen in India. But you have made it easier for importers and not manufacturers. Manufacturers of this pen would have to pay higher import duty as compared to importers. So you are disincentivizing manufacturing of this pen in India. Inverted duty structure harms India's manufacturing sector. This is still there despite GST 2.0. Okay. Then hydrocarbon exclusion disconnect. Petroleum is still outside GST. Petroleum is taxed separate from GST. This is creating a lot of problems. Plus, GST required a constitutional amendment. And that constitutional amendment required support of at least 50% states in India. To put states on board, this GST taxation regime, we promise them some compensation, monetary compensation, so that they give up their own state taxes and adopt GST. But the controversy still persists. Some states are arguing that we still need more compensation. So this is still there. Now, these roadblocks still exist. There is some way forward that is suggested. It is given in your notes, so do check it out from there, okay? And we shall quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is interstate economic divergence. Now, this is a fascinating topic. You know, World Bank classifies countries based on their national income. In fact, per capita income. You know what per capita income is? National income of a country divided by its population, which means per person income. Now, based on your per capita income, World Bank classifies each and every country into 4 categories. Number 1, high income countries. Number 2, upper middle income countries. Number 3, lower middle income countries. And last is low income countries. Now, do you know in which category India lies? India lies in the 3rd category, lower middle income country. And it has been here for so many years. Despite so many steps taken to improve India's per capita income, India is still a lower middle income country. Now, this doesn't suit or align with India's, well, clout, economic clout also. India is in the top 5 countries of the world as far as GDP is concerned. Still, when it comes to per capita income, India is, well, in the 3rd category, lower middle income country. So this doesn't align well with India's economic ambitions, right? But a recent World Bank report found out that if you look closer, there are certain, and mind you, there are certain states in India, states that are high income states. If they were separate country, they would have been classified as high income states. And there are so many states in India that are low income. So eventually the average comes out to be lower middle income. But there are various states in India that are high income. Now there is this huge economic divergence. What are the reasons behind this divergence? We have to investigate that. We should know the reasons behind this and what needs to be done, what more can be done to solve, to bridge this inequality. Let's talk about this, okay? So interstate economic divergence. So according to World Bank's global country income classifications, India is categorized as lower middle income economy, okay? With its per capita income as $2,760. A localized evaluation reveals that 5 distinct states have broken away from national average to come in upper middle income. Sorry, not high income, upper middle income. Delhi, Karnataka, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat. These 5 states are upper middle income countries. Okay. Now, why has this gap widened? Okay. The widening disparity gap. First of all, you need to know about Gini coefficient. Gini coefficient is basically a number between 0 to 1. Okay. If the number is closer to 1, then that means there is high inequality. If the number is closer to 0, then there is more economic equality. Now, India's state-wise Gini coefficient has been widening since 1994 economic liberalization. Okay, it is increasing from 0.230 to 0.261. That means it is going closer to 1. Inequality is rising. Then, since India's economic liberalization, middle income states have expanded their economy 36 times. Middle income countries. Since India was liberalized, there were so many economic opportunities. Already well-to-do states expanded their economy 36 times. This pace outstrips the historical wealthiest states, okay, 28.3, and significantly distances them from poorer states, which grew only 26 times. So the gap has widened. Now, what are the reasons behind this? First of all, the states that were middle income states, the states that were already doing well, had a good human resources, well, they took advantage of India's services exports. States like Karnataka, Telangana, Tamil Nadu have successfully positioned their capitals as premier hubs for global services. Bengaluru is a IT hub, Hyderabad is a IT hub, Chennai is a IT hub, and there was this huge demand for Indian IT services. These states took advantage of that. So these states took advantage of services sector. Okay. Then there were these historical manufacturing states like Gujarat and Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu also. Well, most of the foreign investment that was coming in India came to these states only. Why? Because these states had the required infrastructure for manufacturing. So these foreign investors thought that let's invest in those states which already have the infrastructure to grow. So they basically ignored the poor states. So these states, these manufacturing giants received more money. So they grew. Plus, you see, we are calculating per capita income. Per capita income is income divided by population. Now, poor states like Bihar, UP already have very high population. So even when their income rises, their population is so huge that the per capita number is less. So they are perpetually classified as low middle income states, okay, because of this very high denominator, that is population. So this challenge is there. All right. Now this table is shared in your notes. So which states are in upper middle income countries, which states are in lower middle income, and which states are, well, low income countries. Okay. So what is working for these states? This is given in third column, and what are the challenges faced by these states? It is given in the fourth column. So this is a very good table to memorize all these facts. So do take a look at this table. It is given in your notes, right? And yes, in your notes, some way forward has also been suggested. It is very easy to understand. What should India do to bridge this gap, this widening economic inequality? Well, there are 3 way forwards. It is given in your notes. These are given in your notes. So do take a look at that from the notes. All right. And that would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. I'm sure about it. But it will add more value if you're number one, consistent and regular with this lecture series. Make it a daily habit. And number two, you revise this lecture from the notes provided by us. The notes are shared on our Telegram channel, and the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. So do check it out. Okay then. On that note, I shall take your leave with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.